So this episode is brought to you by Juicy Fruit from Pueblo City, 719. That's what the place is called, 719, because that's the area code. So they're like, hey, no, we represent all the 719. So 719 Juicy Fruit is to blame for what comes out of my mouth after this.
And he gasses his people. Nonsense. False flag. Tampered with evidence. And they don't want to fight.
So this is about specifically Felipe Alonso Gomez, so R.I.P. Felipe Alonso Gomez, who I've nicknamed Felix because it's better for marketing to get the Anglo-Saxons on board to give a shit about baby Felix and baby Jacqueline. So R.I.P. Jacqueline, R.I.P. Felix, let's get some justice for Felix, let's get some justice for Jacqueline. Now, it's legal for anybody to come up to the border and to ask for asylum. Where does this law come from? This comes from the Article 14. This comes from Article 14 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. This is written by Eleanor Roosevelt. This is a United Nations thing. So the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article 14, says that everybody has the right to seek and enjoy in other countries asylum from persecution. Again, Article 14 of the rights of man, the rights of mankind. Everyone has the right to seek and to enjoy in other countries asylum from persecution. So persecution, not prosecution, not violence, but persecution. So persecution in terms of what? Being insulted or actual violence. So that could be pretty elastic right there, but at the very least, right, from violence, from government repression, from violence of domestic violence or the violence from gang violence, that seems to be good reasons for asylum. Also, just pay attention to world history, right? If the Rohingya Muslims, they need a place to go. We know that there's a genocide that's happening in Myanmar right now. That would actually be a great way to help out the people of Myanmar. The Rohingya Muslims are being genocided right now. The American Empire, hey, world's policemen, y'all go ahead and take all this shit. You do whatever the fuck you want and kill this person, kill that person. But when there's real fucking genocide that's happening, we know what's going on in the world. So if people are coming up to our shores and they're Rohingya Muslims, then we know that there is something that's going on in Myanmar. So everybody's got a right to seek and enjoy in other countries asylum for persecution. I agree with that. We should take in every single asylum seeker and refugee. If it's legit, they're running away from some bullshit that they just believe in a different fucking religion. That's it. That's the reason why they're all being killed. So asylum is a lot of people, a lot of the Enlightenment, the René Descartes, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, Voltaire, Thomas Hobbes. Voltaire goes to England, Thomas Hobbes goes to France, René Descartes goes to the Netherlands, Zamyatin fled Russia, Jean-Jacques took off from Switzerland or to Switzerland, or Clovis I established sanctuary and church. Clovis I, which would be the father of the Franks, of the main father of France. Clovis I founded sanctuary in the church. France also introduced asylum in the Constitution of 1793 and in their 1958 Constitution, the Geneva Conventions, 1951. So the right to asylum, to at least ask for asylum, just to ask a question, you can't go up to the border and ask, yeah, then there's an application, it's a big, long process, and if they're being chased by the violent people there, and they say, hey, why don't you wait, a month or a year, well, then we basically have condemned that asylum seeker to death. Anne Frank tried to get into America. We said, no, Anne Frank, you go get killed by syphilis. You go into those concentration camps of Adolf Hitler's, because we don't give a shit about Anne Frank and Anne Frank's family. That's some bullshit. We should take care of Anne Frank. We should take care of baby Jesus. We should take care of Jacqueline and Felix. Their parents are a little different, but the kids, if they have to be deported, then they have to be deported. But to starve them to death, to dehydrate them to death, to make sure they get a little tiny flu and then have the flu kill them off, that's some fucked up bullshit. So there's a lot of shit that's happening. There's terrorists, traffickers, smugglers. So the DHS and the USCIS, United States Customs and Immigration, and the Department of Homeland Security, they handle the asylum claims. DHS isn't going to accept any asylum. And then the immigration, we do need some immigration reform. We need to allow asylum seekers and refugees into our country. But really, the problem with immigration is we don't take care of Americans. So by saying that we're going to accept other people from other countries, that means we're going to start giving a shit about each other. Well, you know, that's probably pretty hard for a lot of Americans to do. So both Jacqueline and Felix are from Guatemala. Both kids have been affected by U.S. policies. We have directly killed their families. We haven't just killed Felix and, you know, collectively as a nation by our nation's policies, Felix and Jacqueline, but we killed their parents and their grandparents and their great-grandparents and their aunts and uncles and a whole bunch of their people because of the genocide and the civil war that we created with that coup d'etat. Remember, we stopped the revolution. We stopped the socialist Alexandria Ocasio, Tulsi Gabbard, Bernie Sanders kind of socialist elected revolution that was happening in Guatemala, and we stopped them 9 years later after they had a 9-year successful revolution of having their own president, right? For 10 years they ran their own country, and then we went ahead and deposed their leader, and then put in our guy, and then for the next 36 years they never got their revolutionary spark back. They've been oppressed, and we have been helping the corporations such as Chiquita Banana massacre all these peasants that were taking land. There was a massive land reform movement where the landless peasants were taking land that wasn't theirs, but it wasn't Chiquita Bananas before either, right? So they were taking the lands of the Mayan ancestors, which the Mayans have been here for, what, 15,000 years? The red and brown Mayans have been in this nation, in the Americas, for 15 to 30,000 years. Americas have been brown and red for 15 to 30,000 years. Anyway, so Felipe is a boy. He's 8.5 years old. He likes to go fishing. Felipe loved to go fish in the public lake nearby. Felipe loved playing soccer. So Felix liked to play soccer. The rest of the world calls soccer football, but, you know, we change it because America's an asshole. Both Felix and Jacqueline's towns are far away from Guatemala City, relative in the country. We bombed Guatemala City. In fact, that coup d'etat was a splendid, quick little mercenary. In a way, you know, there was, what the fuck was up with the socialist president being so weak and stupid? Only 500 mercenaries? 500 mercenaries and 4 American pilots were able to overthrow Guatemala's government in 1954. And then 36 years, so 54, then 60. There was a war that started in 60, and then 36 years after 1960, 1996 is when the Civil War ended. 250,000 people died in that Civil War. So Felipe loved playing soccer. He loved to fish. Jacqueline, she liked to climb trees, which I was actually shocked by because she's, you know, just 7. She's got that tiny little body. How can a tiny little person climb a tree? She had to just climb on the limbs, right? And I recall, you know, just climb up on the limbs like a ladder. But I recall my cousin actually bear hugging a tree and was able to, you know, kind of bear hug his way up the tree, which is, I guess, you know, that's hillbilly fun, right? When you ain't got shit, you find fun shit to do out of nothing. So that's sort of what Felipe and Jacqueline's doing. They're enjoying climbing trees, they're enjoying going fishing, and they like playing soccer. What's soccer cost? A soccer ball? So the parents of Felipe Alonso Gomez is Caterina Alonso. She's 32 years of age. Augustine Gomez, he's 47 years of age. The deaths of the 2 migrant children in detention are prompting more thorough health investments. Health assessments at the border. So you have Kristen Nielsen. I'll give the Trump administration that after the first and then the second death, they are going through a lot of new extraordinary protective measures to make sure that those deaths don't happen again. So there's, she blames that there's an uptick in sick children crossing the borders, but now they're actually asking, are you sick? And they're being serious about asking the question. and they should bring the pediatricians in. Kathleen Kraft, I believe it's Kathleen Kraft, the head of the pediatrician, says we need pediatricians in there to take care of the kids. The Border Patrol, you got a bunch of right-wing fascists taking care of kids? Jesus Christ, it's almost shocking that it's only been 2. So this entire timeline that I'm about to tell you about Felipe Alonso Gomez is from the Border Patrol, Customs and Border Department, CBD, the Customs and Border Department. So Border Patrol, that's what, when we say Border Patrol, we're talking about CBD, which is run by Kevin McAleenan. So from an honest man, if I believe you, if I trust you, I believe most of what you say. You know, if it don't look like you have any cognitive dissonance, it don't look like you got some weird tells or, you know, you're struggling to say something. But from the government officials, I'm like George Carlin. I won't believe really anything. I'll believe what they admit to. I'll believe every single bit of the bad things that they admit to. The rest, who the fuck knows? So this is from the government. This is from the Border Patrol. Eventually, the House Democrats are going to be planning investigations, and I hope they actually do a thorough investigation. Iran-Contra, they dropped the ball, both the press and the government. But specifically, I want a detailed timeline of Felix's 6.5 days in the good old US of A and Jacqueline's 9.5 hours here. I want an accurate hour-by-hour, day-by-day timeline of them both from Congress. We got this from Border Patrol. So at the very least, they told us what they know, or I think they're doing damage control, so they're, you know, putting themselves in the best possible light. They did 17 welfare checks, which is amazing, to be honest. So Felix is going to die on Christmas Day at midnight in a rural New Mexico hospital 2,000 miles from his home in Guatemala. Felix Alonso Gomez died in U.S. Customs and Border Protection custody. Department of Homeland Security, DHS, issued a statement calling the death an unfortunate incident. This is actually calculated state cruelty inflicted every day, just like they've been doing to tens and thousands of immigrants caught crossing the U.S.-Mexico border. This is the Donald Trump policy. This is the no-tolerance policy that killed Felix and Jacqueline. So Felix's final days was shuttled with his father from facility to facility before his death. So Felix, when they first crossed the border, they're picked up around 1 p.m. December 18th. So December 18th, 1 p.m. on a Tuesday. 7 days before Christmas, just 3 miles from the Paso del Norte port of entry in El Paso. So 3 miles away from the ice box. So this ice box has got a notorious reputation. It's called the La Hielera. I don't know, it's Spanish. But it's the ice box in Spanish. So they're returned to the entry point late that afternoon. So they're caught away from the entry point. We have like 20 port of entries. They call them the POEs. So we got about 20 POEs, and it's about 3 miles away from this one POE. And then they take him to Paso, P-A-S-O, del Norte, port of entry. So they capture Felix. They capture Augustine Gomez. Augustine Gomez and his 8.5-year-old Felix were caught December 18th, 1 p.m. So that long journey, they're captured in the desert west of El Paso, and then they're taken to the processing center. And this Paso del Norte is known as the ice box. The ice box is a warehouse dungeon where temperatures are deliberately kept near freezing, and prisoners are kept in cages under glaring halogen lights. The ice box, they are notorious for treating everybody shittily. Bad food, spoiled food, if you even get food, abusive guards, shit-covered walls, these are commonplace. So Felix is kept in the ice box with the shit-covered walls in Paso del Norte Processing Center for a day and a half. So he stayed in the ice box for at least a day and a half. Well, shit, if that didn't make him, that could have given him, what's that where you're just cold all the time? Hypothermia. He could have got hypothermia from that. And that could have shocked his system, weakened his immune system, and then when that virus, that flu got into his system, his body had already been shocked. That's what Jacqueline died of, septic shock. Septic shock, where her body is just all fighting against each other, just shocked, and it just seizes up. So Felix goes to the icebox. So that's what America does. Welcome to America, Felix. Put you in the icebox for a day and a half, and then after the day and a half of the icebox treatment, we sent him to the El Paso Border Patrol Station. This is 2 days later, Thursday, December 20th, 5 days before Christmas. So 2 days after they're picked up, they're transported to the El Paso Border Patrol Station. There, they are showering. They're running water. They got food, not just water, but they get juice. Because of the crowding there, however, around midnight on Saturday, 2 more days later, so this is Thursday, Friday, Saturday, so they're at the El Paso Border Patrol Station for 2 days, the icebox for a day and a half. Now they're being moved again to the Border Patrol Station in Alamogordo, New Mexico. And they're transported again, it says, at midnight on Saturday. Leaving or receiving, who knows. So the El Paso Station is crammed full of immigrants. Most likely they're all sick, right? Everybody's got the damn flu. Journeying north, nobody's washing their hands. A journey north, cold December desert temperatures. So they're driven 80 miles north to the Alamogordo Border Patrol Station. This is the third Border Patrol Station that they have gone to. Alamogordo Border Patrol Station is where he is going to die. So he gets there December 22nd, December 24th, Christmas Eve. So Merry Christmas, everybody, right? Merry Christmas in your face. Eat my festive joy. Merry Christmas, motherfuckers. Alamogordo Border Patrol Station, Christmas Eve, December 24th. On Monday morning, an agent noticed that Felix is coughing and that his eyes seem glossy. 30 minutes later, he was taken with his father to the Gerald Champion Regional Medical Center. After 6 days of all this transporting back and forth, eventually little Felix's body is starting to give out. So on Christmas Eve, 5.5 days or so, he's got glossy eyes, he's coughing, glossy eyes. 30 minutes later, he's taken, along with Augustine, to the Gerald Champion Regional Medical Center, to a hospital. After he's coughing, he looks ill, then it says that they don't know when he developed his illness, but they never mentioned it for 5 days, so either he had no medical checks or it wasn't clear by his overall appearance that he was sick. But Christmas Eve is when the shit starts to hit the fan. This is when it all goes downhill. Merry Christmas Eve, right? So at the Gerald Champion Regional Medical Center, they take Felix in. He's diagnosed as suffering from a common cold. They said, here's a cold, and gave him Tylenol, held him for observation after determining that he had a 103-degree fever. They released him with prescriptions for antibiotics and ibuprofen. Antibiotics, I think it's amoxicillin, so penicillin. They gave him some prescriptions for penicillin and ibuprofen, prescriptions, meaning that the prison guards had to go pick up the antibiotics, but they should have ibuprofen and penicillin on site. So an hour later, after he gets there, they say he's got a common cold. They tested him, got a 103-degree fever, kept him for an hour. He didn't go down, his temperature didn't go down, so they released him with those prescriptions. In mid-afternoon is when they released him. So he's back in jail, but he's not in the same jail that he was before. Before he was at the Alamogordo place, the Alamogordo Border Patrol Station, right? Because we put him in the icebox. Right, America? That's what we all did. We all put him in this icebox, and then we put him in the El Paso Border Patrol Station. And then we transported him again to the Alamogordo Border Patrol Station. Then he's in the hospital, but then after they released him, we took him to another place. This is a temporary holding facility, a highway checkpoint off the side of the interstate. This is a rest area. We're making fucking tent city rest areas into, prison, immigrant prisons. Immigrant children prisons. So they're building all these tent cities for all these kids. So that's where this kid's getting ready to go, to the tent city. He's sick and he's got glossy eyes. He's coughing, but they give him some pills and they said, all right, now you're going to go back to this jail. Christmas Eve, right, 7 p.m., 2 hours later, after he was released, he's vomiting. He's puking. So he was coughing. He had glassy eyes in the beginning. They said he had a common cold and sent him with some bacteria-fighting stuff, which common cold, I guess it could be bacteria, but it would most likely be viral, right? It'd be virus. So why are you giving him penicillin for anyways, I guess they're just covering all their bases, right? So here's just some Tylenol, here's some basic penicillin. So the account is not corroborated by Felix's father. None of this is. They said that Felix declined medical assistance when Felix appeared to be better. So they said at 7 p.m. they asked, hey, Felix's father, Augustine, hey Augustine, do you want Felix to go back to the hospital and be taken care of and not die? And then his cruel, mean, sadistic father said, no, I don't care if he's coughing, I don't care if he has glossy eyes, and I don't give a shit if he is puking now. So don't take me to the hospital. What the fuck? That's what they're saying? Okay, well, if he said it out of fear. He didn't say it because that's what he actually wanted. But your humanity should trump over everything that's going on right now. You got a sick kid who's going to die Christmas Eve, so around 10 p.m., after apparently Augustine's father said no to the medical, to going to the hospital, no medical assistance, not at all, even though he's puking. So then, 10 p.m., 3 hours after that, Christmas Eve, Felix was lethargic and nauseated again. So he was just looking like death, like he wasn't, conscious, not sleepy, but like sick, tired, nearly to die. They took him to the hospital again, 10 p.m. On the way, he vomited again, and he fainted. He passed out on the way there. On arrival at the hospital, staff, they were unable to revive him. So he didn't faint, he died on the way there. They declared him dead at midnight. Or after midnight, or before midnight. Nobody knows when they actually declared him dead. So, before Border Patrol said he died on Christmas Day, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, he died on Christmas. The father and son, according to a spokeswoman for the Guatemalan Foreign Ministry, are from Nintan, a rural municipality near the Mexican border in Huehuetenango. The impoverished province sends more migrants than any other to the United States. The family had asked for the boy's body to be returned to Guatemala after an autopsy is performed. The Foreign Ministry will ask for a formal investigation by immigration authorities in the hospital. The Foreign Ministry has been in contact with the boy's mother and sister. So, Jacqueline Cal-Macklin, she just died a week or two prior to Felix dying. Jacqueline Cal-Macklin died in El Paso on December 8th, buried on Christmas Day in her impoverished mountain hometown of San Antonio, C. Cortez. Her 27-year-old mother wasn't there at the funeral. She is Quechua Mayan. So, Jacqueline Cal-Macklin is a Mayan, Quechua Mayan. Now, Ninton is where Felix is from, N-E-N-T-O-N. Ronald Reagan, he helped to massacre a lot of people in Ninton because the poor peasants were taking land. This is land reform, so it was legal. But then after the coup d'etat, then you just started a civil war to where they said that corporations, Chiquita Banana's right to property was more important than any of the people, the Mayan people's right to property. So the Ninton 1982 massacre, 36 years ago, it appears that Felix Alonso Gomez's relatives were among the tortured and killed. It's hard to verify, but a list of victims of the massacre showed that 24 members of the Gomez family, Augustine Gomez, that's his father, 24 members of the Gomez family were killed in the Ninton 1982 massacre by Ronald Reagan. And 3 members, financed and supported by, it was Rios Montt. So the president of Guatemala, we're helping them. We use military bases. We invaded Nicaragua through Guatemala. So Guatemala's our right-wing friend. It's our Israel in the region. So this is with our approval, right? Like Saudi Arabia is killing all those Yemeni kids today. So 24 members of the Gomez family and 3 members of the Alonso family were killed. So that's the mother and the father. Augustine Gomez is 47, so that means Augustine would have been 11 years old. He's 47. He was 11. He would remember what the fuck happened at 11 years of age in 1982. And then the Civil War is going to end in 1996, so that means he was 25. Augustine Gomez was 25 years old when the Civil War ended, and he was 11 years old when Ronald Reagan helped the president of Guatemala massacre a lot of these poor peasants who had taken land during the land reform era of the Guatemalan Revolution. So American imperialism is to blame. We coup d'etat them. It was quick and easy. Only 4 American pilots, 500 mercenaries. Who knows who the mercenaries are? Not any Americans. So we paid some poor people in the region, schooled them in the School of Americas, gave them guns and ammunition, and told them what to do. We did bomb Guatemala City. We put a blockade on it, so we put our Navy there. We basically shielded these mercenaries from the rest of the world to intervene. So we stopped anybody else from stopping it, but the 500 mercenaries were able to take out the president and then install a different leader. So the mercenaries were effective, and it worked, and it was relatively quick and easy. It was only a month, maybe less than a month. Doesn't make it right. 250,000 people were killed in the Guatemalan Civil War. There was a second socialist, democratically elected socialist, both the second democratically elected president and second socialist. So it'd be like if John Adams was Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, if they were one and the same. So we killed their John Adams / Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez as their leader, their president. We killed their version of AOC and John Adams if we were to put those two together. And we deposed of them, so we didn't kill him. The guy dies in 1971, which I always thought was weird. If you were coup d'etats are illegal. Act like it didn't fucking happen. Go back. Declare a revolution against the coup d'etaters. Whoever the fuck they are, they're the enemies of the people. So Felix was from the municipality of Niton in the department of Huehuetenango. This is the westernmost part of what is now known as the Franja Transversal del Norte, the northern transversal strip, a resource-rich area in the center of the country containing the country's wood, oil, and mineral deposits. Throughout the first half of the 20th century, poor peasants in the region engaged in some of the fiercest efforts to seize farmland from the control of wealthy landowners and corporations such as United Fruit Company, Chiquita Banana. The first democratically elected president happened in 1945, and then he stayed president for 6 years until 1951. He had survived 25 coup d'etat attempts. There was a new constitution and an increase of minimum wage. So he was somewhat radical. The first democratically elected president, I don't even know his name, but Jacobo Arbenz is going to get there in 1951, and then he's going to be the one that's deposed in 1954. Jacobo Arbenz was known as the Big Blonde, the Swiss. He was the second democratically elected president in Guatemala, the 25th president total in Guatemalan history, and he was of the Guatemalan Revolution Party. So the U.S. backed coup d'etat, overthrew President Jacobo Arbenz in 1954, and then the strip, including Huehuetenango, was opened up to unprecedented levels of exploitation by American corporations. Thousands of peasants were killed to break the land movement. Abraham Lincoln had a land movement, the Free Soil Movement. In the late 1970s and 1980s, when the Civil War reached its most violent stage, many of the worst atrocities committed by the Guatemalan government, CIA-backed death squads, the School of America, CIA, took place in Huehuetenango. So that's one of the worst spots, was where Felix's family was from. Here's a report from the New York Times. In 1999, the Niton Massacre of 1982, this is Felix's home municipality. They uncovered a mass grave at the San Francisco Finca, a land estate in the municipality of Niton, revealing a horrific government attack on the village as retribution for peasant land seizures. A New York Times report from 1999 describes what happened in 1982 in the municipality of Niton. On the morning of July 17, 1982, a convoy of Army trucks made its way up a nearly impassable trail to this remote Mayan Indian hamlet and unloaded a company of troops. So we got a convoy of Army trucks, and they're going in the middle of nowhere, Mayan Indian hamlet. The company of troops gets out. Soon afterward, a helicopter arrived with the unit's officers. The U.S. trained soldiers rounded up the villagers with the promise